The Damned, and a brilliant record called New Rose, and that's chosen by one of my guests from the Ruts, Dave Ruffy, the drummer. Dave, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Johnny.
And also with us is Segs Jennings.
Hello, Johnny.
How are you, Segs?
I'm kind of quite enamoured to be here in the radio with you, Johnny, after listening to you since 1967 or something.
You don't look that old.
Nor do you.
Yeah. So, Ruffy, do you remember when you first heard that Damn record?
I do, yeah. I think the first sort of punk band that hit me was probably the Ramones, but the Damned were the first British band to have a single out. And I worked in a record shop at the time, and we didn't do singles because they weren't cool. With punk rock, we did, and I remember it well. And that's when I first met Segs.
Yeah, because I was working for the GPO, International Telephones, up at St Paul. So my lunchtimes were really taken up walking around all these record shops. There used to be a record shop called a chain called Harlequin. You'd walk around there, go in the basement, try and find singles and funky imports, and Ruffy had the cheapest stuff, and we got to be friends. And then punk kind of happened, and I walked in one day and he had a homemade Ramones t-shirt, and he said, "Have you heard this?" I mean, he put it on, and we went, right, that's it, and everything's changed from then, really.
Right, we got to form a band?
Well, kind of. It was a little bit more complicated than that.
Well, yeah, we became friends, but I was already doing music. Segs had never been in a band. But when the Ruts started, for about 2 weeks, I was the bass player in the way that punk rock, you can do whatever you want. And I could play a couple of notes on the guitar. So I was, but I had already played drums. I could already play. I've been playing for a few years. So I went back on the drums, and we needed a bass player. So I just thought he'd be a good choice because I knew he had some good moves. I knew he had an acoustic guitar.
You said you got to get your hair cut because I had long hair, you know.
So it didn't matter about musicianship as long as you had the good moves.
Well, it did matter, but I knew that he liked funk music and he had some he liked music.
Yeah,
and,
was it easy to learn the bass?
Well, it's a kind of famous evening. Paul Fox, sadly demised now, who's the guitarist. I can't tell you what the audition really consisted of, but it was basically sitting around a house, and it was basically how much you could drink and still sort, and then pass you the bass and said, right, learn this, and I sort of did okay. So, but you got to remember, it wasn't about musicianship; it was really about attitude. I mean, the first recording ever, Ruffy played bass on Phil Lynott's that mirror bass. He lent him the bass, and he had all stickers up the neck, like with the notes on it. But that's what it was about then. It was about, we can do this.
It's almost sort of actually goes way back to the early days, the 50s of skiffle, of sort of homemade instruments, and you didn't, anybody can be in a band.
Well, absolutely. I think with skiffle and with punk rock, they're kind of roots music. They're music that brings you back to the people. You say the same about reggae and rockabilly, and I think that's what it is. I still like roots music. It's one of my
This
favourites.
roots are rebel music. That's what we call it to this day. But I mean, good job they didn't pass me the teacher space.
Let's do a very early Ruts record, and this is called In a Rut. The Ruts and In a Rut. With us are Ruffy and Segs from the band. So, dear old John Peel, bless him, the long, departed John, did his magic on that one when he heard that.
He did. A great friend of ours, Bob Johnson, who was, you may remember, Anchor Records, and he used to be, and Transatlantic. He used to go round the van and deliver records, and a friend of ours, Simon Potts, was a plugger at BBC. We made the In a Rut, I think, 78, and then we couldn't afford to get it out until our manager at the time sold some jewellery to get it kind of pressed up. And then one of them got slipped under Simon Potts' pile, and he slipped it to John Peel. And I remember that John Peel saying, I should listen to what people are saying because people have been asking me to play the Ruts for 6 months, and I haven't, but now I have. And he kind of fell in love with that record. So it was a fantastic moment for us, really.
He went from being a kind of wannabe to it didn't make any financial difference, of course, but to be on a John Peel show was just the best, And he really liked us, and we did 4 sessions for him over the next year or so, and it was brilliant. It really transformed us,
And then you'd sign a deal to Virgin, which is sort of a bit corporate, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the truth be told, Segs and I, because I was in the industry, and I could see the industry slowing down a bit then, and I thought, this indie malarkey looks all right. You get much better money for this. And me and him thought it would be a much better idea, but the other two really wanted to be kind of pop stars more, and they wanted to sign the deal. So we did sign a terrible deal. I think they probably still believe that, it'd be endless limos and whatever.
So, okay, best and worst gig.
The best and worst was at the Nashville, where we had kind of pitched battles. We got a book out, Love in Vain, and it starts off with that.
There were loads of factions of various crews from southwest London coming to take another cruise, and it was really violent, so very bad. But musically, very, very good. They're very, very good.
I think Jake Burns, we've been on tour with Jake, he was actually at the back. Someone took a shine to him, one of the skidders, and said, look, if you just stand at one side, you won't get hurt. And he said, I did, and I didn't, so... but, I mean, it was kind of crazy out there, because there was all these different tribal factions, really, weren't they, Ruff?
There were, but it's different now. It's calmed down, because the energy was good energy, and people jumping around having a really good time, but sometimes, with negative influences in the room, it could turn very sour.
Cue a record, I think, Segs. So Sex Pistols, Anarchy in the UK.
Why not? That was very special to me and Ruffy because, again, we were in the shop, just learnt all the lyrics and used to go along in the car singing it, like fans we are.
That's The Who and The Seeker, another favourite record of Ruffy, who's along here with Segs, two members of the Ruts, who are still in existence. We'll come to that a bit later on. But what was wrong with the Virgin deal then?
Well, it was... they always say be careful what you say. We were, like most people, extremely naive. And that the sort of deal that they brokered was the sort of deal that even EMI had stopped issuing in the early 50s. It basically killed you as an artist if you disagreed with them because they had all your publishing money as well. So that's why it was bad.
So instead of them giving you a big hefty advance, you ended up owing them 84 grand. That's the story.
That's right, yeah. It's a bit like getting a mortgage and the mortgage grows and you keep paying back, but you never actually own the house.
Yeah, it's very similar. I've noticed, but I didn't know that at the time.
So there was always that great affinity between punk rock and reggae. And you got very friendly with a reggae band, and there was always that reggae influence on the Ruts.
But that was Misty and Roots, and that was an interesting story in itself, because Malcolm used to live in Hayes, Paul used to live over that way as well, and people used to just come in and out of the house, and Clarence Baker, who was black, Chris Bolton, who was white, started this thing called People Unite, which was Misty and Roots label, and they released In a Rut, which I still think very proud of and very cool thing to do. Long before Rock Against Vases, we were kind of doing gigs and going up and down the country, and in the end, we all became great friends, which is a marvellous story.
I think it works very well because we were saying earlier, they're both roots music, and the coolness of the reggae was a nice antidote to the fierce sort of thrashing of punk rock, so it worked very well.
And they worked, in the clubs and the gigs, you might get Don Letts or someone less famous playing reggae music in between the punk bands, which is I still like to do to this day, really, because it kind of simmers it all down.
So how did Babylon's Burning come about?
Well, Segs came up with a line.
You'd learned the bass by this time.
Well,
mastered the bass guitar.
Actually not, because I couldn't do a scale, so that was my closest I could get to a scale, and I was just used to go as a warming up, because I didn't really know a scale, and Paul Fox just went, and then Malcolm just sang, So a lot of our stuff was written in a squat in New Cross Road, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Segs and I used to spend 3-4 days a week just rehearsing all day, trying to get our chops up and everything.
Rehearsing? You're a punk band. You're not supposed to do
but
that.
we really like music.
We liked it.
I think what we got from punk, it wasn't that we never had leather jackets or spiky hair or anything, but as a movement, we got very impressed by it. The can-do thing, and kind of gave me the impetus to sort of make a go of doing music. And I've been doing it ever since for a living. I haven't done anything else since then. So I'm not become rich, but I've always paid my way, brought my kids up, and it's still doing what I love. So it's a great thing,
Same for you, Segs? Always been music all these years?
Since I started, mainly that's been the main thing. I don't go and play with too many other bands, but
Alabama 3, you were in for
Alabama 3 I was in for a while. Woke up this morning, that was for the Sopranos team, and we both played with Kirsty MacColl together.
We did. I was very lucky. I played with lots of people. After Malcolm died, I was kind of in mourning, and
Malcolm was your lead singer.
He was a lead singer. When we started, then we were Ruts DC for a year or so, and then I'm just very lucky. I've worked with lots of people, worked with Walter Boys, Nastic Camera, and Prefab Sprout, and blah blah blah. And loads of people, and Kirsty MacColl, more importantly, who, God bless her, and God rest her soul.
So he's a good drummer then, Segs.
Well, I was just about to say, the reason he's played with all those people is he's very good. I mean, the greatest thing now is, I'm singing more and we sing together, but we don't really have to worry about what the kick and the bass are doing. You just look down and it's just playing itself because we play together like that, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we've become a rhythm section as well as friends, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, very
It took
nice.
40 years.
Well, lovely to see you both, and great you're still making music.
Yeah.
We'll mention a new album after this. This is Babylon Burning. So Ruffy, many thanks.
Thank you, Johnny.
And
Thanks very
Segs,
much.
great to meet you.
Great to meet you.
Thanks for coming in. Segs and Ruffy, they'll be listening in this afternoon. You'll love this one, fellas. This is from Neil Waite from Aylesford in Hampshire. Currently out on a Sunday afternoon walk on this gorgeous afternoon, got my portable DAB radio and listening to a show. Had to stop and sit down on a park bench to email you to say it's so great to hear your interview with the mighty Segs and Ruffy. Not only were the Ruts the most underrated punk band, they are one of the most underrated bands of all time. I remember listening to their debut album, The Crack, for the very first time when I was 13. Absolutely sublime. Still sounds as fresh and vibrant as it did back in the day. Seen them live a number of times, and boy, they still kick it out. So there you go. Segs and Ruffy, you like that. The band...